Hi, this is how I model a low poly Jimny in Blender. So I start as I always do with setting up the blueprint. And unfortunately this blueprint that I'm using to build the Blender, to build the Jimny is quite bad, as you will notice later. So I'm setting up the different views. So front, back, side and top. And I'm trying to align them as good as I can. And here you can start to see the issue with that the blueprint from the top is really bad. So I start out with a circle with 10 vertices to create a wheel arc, or we'll call it. And I add a reference image from the beginning so I have a better understanding for how the car looks. Then I just start dragging and pulling the vertices to the places where I want them. So I'm setting up the mirror so that I only need to build one side of the car. And here I'm starting with the side of the car. And I'm trying to figure out the blueprint, and here you can see that I'm trying to adjust the blueprints to be more correct in the place, or something is real off with them. And this is an issue, but I try to work around it. So just adding more geometry for the places where I think it will be needed. And I continue working on the side of the car. And here I'm starting working with the hood and realize that the top view is a complete different blueprint than I'm working with on the side, and this is a real issue. But I also realized that the hood shape is probably the same, so I try to use that. So I just adjust the blueprint to fit the view, and use the parts of the top blueprint that I can use. So in a way, in this build I only use the side, the front and the back of the blueprint. It would have been easier if the top blueprint would have worked as well, but you cannot always get that, apparently. So I'm shifting views a lot just to see how I should place the vertices. And here I'm trying to figure out the best way to meet with the A pillar and the hood. So I'm trying to think. And I think I solved it pretty good in the end. But here I try different solutions to get it where I want. And here is also still trying to use the top view, but it's really bad, and I don't know why I'm still struggling with it. Yeah, so here I'm fixing the window, scaling it down, adjusting, placing, and here I add the color of the car, because I think it's easier to see the different parts of the car if I add materials early on in the process. So here I'm fixing the windows. The inset, that's really handy when you're working like this. It's all about pulling and dragging the vertices and adding indexes and extruding stuff. And that's pretty much how you can attack every car. So here starting with the front, that is a bit tricky part. And preferably you would use more reference image than the one image from the front I'm using here. But it kind of works. And here I didn't try to use the top blueprint. I was just trying to get a feeling for how the car looks from the top. I have now abandoned the hope of using the top blueprint. So I'm trying to be naming the different parts and materials. From the beginning it's much easier to have control of all the materials and parts later on if you try to do this from the beginning when you create the part. And it's also always good to check to see that you don't have any duplicates of vertex in the same place, because that will cause issues later on. So I merge them or check if I have duplicates. And here I'm trying to create a bumper. And here I could really use more reference images as well. But I think it's turned out pretty good in the end. So just adding geometry where it's needed. And trying to find the correct shape. And switching often between the different views to find this shape. Inset to create a lower grill. And extruding. And here I realized that I need to use the cutting tool and rebuild this part because something is wrong and I couldn't get the edge flow that I wanted. So I deleted some faces and rebuild them. Inset extruding. But when I look upon this from the side later on, there is an issue. And I'm starting with roof. Loop cut to get a better roof meeting in the front. So here I'm starting with the back, and a really good tip is what I did there, that to hide the vertices that I'm not working with, so they do not disturb the work or the view. Here I'm working with the meeting between the roof and the back. And here I also started to realize that something's really off with the back blueprint. And the thing with this back blueprint is also that it mirrored, which I will fix later on, but because almost every other car you can just mirror it all over and there will be no issues, but since this Jimny actually have a door that is not a mirrored door, I need to fix that later on. So here I'm building the rear bumper. Working with the knife tool to be able to rearrange the vertices as I want them, because I'm planning to extrude the rear light. And also working a lot with the snapping tool, shift tab, so I can snap to different heights of the vertices and so on. It's really handy. And here I realize from the reference image that is kind of sloping down the rear lights, so I couldn't just follow the blueprint. Added more materials, and the time to create a spare wheel. Adding material and naming the material. And here I work with the slash on the numpad to isolate that part, so it's not hiding, it's just isolate the part so you can bring it back again. It's really handy as well. And here I'm starting to make the handle for the back door. So inset, pulling, dragging, extruding. And here I'm starting to work with the grooves on the roof. Extruding and scaling, and this I could done better and work with scaling on both in the same time, but I didn't. But I will do it later, so you will see how it's done. So I'm creating the lights, and this I do by creating Booleans that cut hole in the grill part and then just adding lights. Or I duplicate the Booleans actually and make them be the lights after I scale them down. Here I scale them down, put them in place, and adding material. So fixing the lower lights, and here I also realized that it needs to be more details in this part, the bumper, and when you look upon it from the side it's not correct, so here I'm fixing the details. And this is why I like to do low polycarb, because it's so much faster and you still get a car. But if you do a real car, a photorealistic car, there are so much details you really need to pay attention to, and you can always go back and fix something. But in a low poly car, you are it's easier to cut corners and still get away with it. So here I started working with the grill, just creating the Boolean of objects that I will cut with, and I add an array, setting the materials, because the material of a cut with will be the material the grill will get in that area, and setting the count to 5 instead, so we have the correct cut part. Adding some more materials and fixing the material on the cut part, or the Boolean part. Adding a turn light. And here I start working on the door handle. I realized that I should move the vertices closer so I don't get any distortion. Here I'm just adding more details to the car. And here I also realized that when I try to put them in place according to the blueprint, they are kind of off. So I need to move them, just wing it where it looks good. And here I start to work with the wheelhouses and also the undertray of the car, I think. And here I realized that I did not finish the rock guard, or what do you call it? So I need to do that. So I set it up. For inset, extrude it, select the different faces. I will do another inset for those parts that are supposed to go out. And here I did something wrong, so I decided to just start over and create it from the beginning again, instead to try to fix it. So it's so often more easy just to start over and try again. And here I scale all in the same way and just fix that. A much easier way than I fixed the roof. And here I'm starting with the side mirror. And this is also a part that would be much easier if I had a blueprint from the top to go after as well, because now I'm only using the blueprints from the front and the side. But it works. And here I cheat with the quads, but nobody will see, so it's okay. So here I take the spare wheel and just duplicate it to create a real wheel. And here I realize I don't want those rims on the car, so I check some reference images and have found a rim that I like, that I try to recreate. I think that looks good. And first I created the wheels in a way that I didn't like, because I realized that in the render I want the wheels to be independent. And here I create a backup of the car and the lights, and then just adding all, I apply the mirror, and then I can fix this hole, because now the car isn't a mirror anymore. So it's, and here setting up the tires independently and try to name them accordingly, so it's easier to find them. And now I'm starting setting up the scene. I'm fixing some settings for the camera in Eve mode. And I want the car to be standing on a rock. So I'm creating the rock, and rotating the car and fixing the tire to be standing on the rock. And just adding some kind of axis to the wheel. And here I'm starting to add lighting. So I often go with a 3-point lighting. One from the side, one from the back, this kind of rim light, and one from the front. And I still unfortunately have some problem with the renders and cycles with my graphics card. I don't really know what it's about, and kind of fix it. So I will start rendering Eevee, and then I'm setting up for cycles. And this is pretty much how it's done. So thanks for watching, and if you like this, please like and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions for other cars that you want me to make, just write that in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.